We have another reading from Genesis as the first reading today, and it's the idea that sin is growing in the world. We saw sin begin with Adam and Eve. We saw it grow with Cain's murder of Abel, and then we skipped a little bit of material. It's Lamech. Lamech is one of the descendants of Adam. He said, God said that if Cain's hurt, I'll pay back 7 times. What does Lamech say? I'll pay you back 77 times. The growth of violence, the growth of sin in the world. And it reaches a point where God says, enough. If God were Italian, he'd just yell out, basta. And he'd say, we got to do something about this. And that's the story of Noah and the flood. Basically, God decides to start over, saves Noah and his family and the animals. Now, a couple things about this story that we're going to be looking at these next few days. First of all, the punishment. The punishment is a flood. There's a rabbinic saying, as the sin, so the punishment. So if you tell a lot of lies, what do you become? A liar. If you swear a lot, what do you become? A foul-mouthed person. If you watch way too many reality programs on TV, your mind becomes mush. God doesn't have to send punishments, it's already there. People sinned, and sin is a form of chaos. So if they want chaos, God will step back and give them chaos. The flood is an example of chaos, and that's what God allows to happen on the earth. Now, as we're looking at this story, we got to realize there seem to be 2 different versions of the same story that somebody, somewhere along the way, pasted together. And how do we know this? Because in one version of the story, Noah's only supposed to take 1 pair of every animal. And in the other, 7 pairs of the clean animal, 1 pair of the unclean. And the length of the flood varies too. Now, if this were edited in the 21st century, we would have knocked out all those differences. But when it was originally edited, they said, no, let's keep all the material because somehow it's all true. It was a different idea of reality than we have. We say things are either this or that. And they had a lot more open idea of what things were. Now, did the flood happen? You've watched way too many A&E specials to not have heard that maybe the flood didn't happen the way it's said. Archaeologists and geologists have studied the earth, and there's no layer of mud all around the earth. So that you would expect that if the whole world were flooded. Furthermore, in a lot of societies, there's a very similar story to this. And the most famous one is in Babylonia. Have you ever heard of Gilgamesh? He was a king who wanted to know about what happened during the flood. So he visited a man named Atrahasis. And Atrahasis told him the story of how the gods became angry. They decided to send a flood. 1 family was saved. And at the end, they made a sacrifice. Does that sound vaguely familiar? It's very, very close to the story of Noah. Now, there are major differences. First of all, why did the gods create humans in the story in Babylon? To be the slaves of the gods. In Israel, to be friends of the God. How did the gods save the Atrahasis in the Babylonian story? One of the gods who liked him spoke inside of a cabin real loud so Atrahasis, who was on the porch, could hear what he's saying. Oh, what a shame, we're going to flood the world. If someone were to build a boat, whereas in the Jewish story, God makes it very clear, invites Noah to do what he says. And then after the flood, when the sacrifice is offered, in the Babylonian story, it says that the gods gathered around the sacrifice like hungry flies. Because remember, their gods actually ate those sacrifices. Where in the Jewish story, God was pleased at the fragrant smell that arose from that sacrifice. So notice, even if the Jewish authors used that pre-existing story, they changed it to speak about our God, the way our God sees us, the way our God calls us to covenant. Now, should it scandalize us that maybe they borrowed a story here or there? We have borrowed many things from other religions. For example, the date for Christmas. The shepherds were in the field by night. What season do the shepherds stay in the field by night? In the spring, when the sheep are birthing their lambs. So Jesus was probably born during the spring. Why do we celebrate it on December 25th? Because it was already a pagan holiday, and you might as well celebrate on a pagan holiday so no one will be able to point you out as a Christian celebrating a feast that's not on their day. And in fact, it was the pagan holiday of the birth of the sun, S-U-N. The 25th is about the first day you can see the day getting longer. Well, Jesus is the light of the world. Doesn't it fit that you celebrate it that day? Over the centuries, we borrowed a lot of ideas. Even the responsorial psalm we read today, God thunders over the waters, the voice of the Lord, that was originally a Canaanite hymn. That the Israelites, they took the hymn, crossed out the name Baal, and just wrote in the name Yahweh. And all of a sudden it became a Jewish hymn. What does this tell us? That the Holy Spirit works in many, many ways. Remember when Jesus said, the wind, you can't tell where it's coming from or where it's going? That's a reminder that the Holy Spirit works in many cultures. Do we Catholics believe that we've received a special gift? You bet we do. But that doesn't mean they haven't received anything. Can we find beauty? Can we find truth in other faiths? Give us a couple simple examples. Wouldn't you like to have the courage of the Jehovah's Witnesses, going from door to door, knocking, sharing their faith, getting doors slammed in their face all day long? Wouldn't you love to have the singing ability of the Baptists? When they sing a song, you can hear it down the street. Sometimes when the organist or the pianist announces a song, we Catholics, we look up with that look that says, I dare you to make me sing. That we can learn a lot from other faiths. Right now, I'm reading a book about a poet named Rumi, R-U-M-I. He's Islamic. He talks about the love of God and how love is what unifies the universe. And it's becoming a beautiful meditation for me about the true meaning of love. To open our eyes to where God is speaking, even in ways we wouldn't expect it. And we don't have to accept everything that's said, but to find those jewels in other people, other cultures, and celebrate the fact that the Spirit speaks in so many ways, more ways than we could ever understand.